What's up, War Report family? We are back with another great edition of the Auburn Express Building Rapport podcast. We're live on YouTube as well. Joining me today is a very special guest, purveyor of all things SEC, Chris Marler. Let me bring him in here. Chris, thanks for joining me today, man.
How many people do you think left your listeners right now, as soon as I came in here?
They'll be back. I've come to learn that that hate listening is a thing, and so listen, some people love to hate you, and I expect them to be here for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Chris, let's get started here. It's the new SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Texas and Oklahoma have joined the conference, and there are a lot of great storylines. Least of which is Saban is gone, and this is Alabama's first year without Nick Saban. Now you're
I did not know that.
Purveyor of all things Tide. Give me the real feeling in Tuscaloosa right now about Kalen DeBoer's first year. It seems like emotions are running the gamut here.
No, I'm sure Bama fans, like all fans, are just handling it with the objectivity and logic and reason. Dude, here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you what the mood is in Tuscaloosa because I don't live in Tuscaloosa. But I will also tell you that as we get closer to the season, I'll just give you what my perception is, and I try to be as objective as possible when it comes to Alabama. And sometimes I have a tendency to emotionally hedge on it, but it's usually against Bama when I do because I'm so nervous or think that, like the Georgia game specifically, I feel like they're always going to lose that game, and for whatever reason they always win it. As a objective person that is trying to cover the entire SEC, I look at this team and I think I see the team talent composite that came out the other day, and Bama's number one again. Now that's obviously a little bit skewed because it's solely based off of high school rankings. Mm-hmm. Alabama lost 41 players in the transfer portal. They lost 12 total defensive backs that were either to the NFL draft or to the transfer portal. You know damn well that what they brought in recruiting wise, right? That's not what they replaced from a talent for talent exchange. They didn't replace to get an even exchange or come out on top of that in terms of like star rankings or like that. Like once everyone left versus what they brought in. I will also say this: the whole portal thing was unbelievable to watch happen because everyone in the nobody felt bad for Bama, nor should they. But the portal closed on the 7th. Saban retired on the 11th or 10th or 11th, whatever. Which means the entire country got to pick off of Bama's roster at will for 30 days. Yeah. Bama wasn't allowed to go out and get anybody. And then I kept hearing, it's like, well, they're going to get their chance at, in the April window, 16th to the 30th, man, after spring ball. And then you come to find out, it's like, well, yeah, but they can't go SEC to SEC because that's a rule in this conference. Yeah. So I think you're at a talent deficit from where you were year before. I do think that is only based off of the entire roster itself. On the first unit, specifically on defense, it's going to be a very strong unit. They are very talented. They're young on the back end. That front seven, though, should be very, very fierce. The linebackers, I think, is going to be the best linebacking core you've had there since maybe 2016, 2017, those years. The defensive line and the edge rushers should be better. Here's the thing about, like, you lost some guys at receiver, and you've seen a natural drop-off there because of you're not going to replace – like I kept saying you were going to replace first-round picks with first-round picks, and then you replace first-round picks with a Heisman winner. So it's like at some point you have to have a drop-off. They have felt the drop-off, but everyone's going to eat in this offense. So I think they're going to be a team that scores around 36 to 40 points a game. If the defense can be good, I think that they will be a really good team. But
40 points a game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look at what DeBoer's always done, right? Like that's the MO. Jalen Milroe is going to eat in this offense. The receivers are going to eat in this offense. I think they're going to score around 40 points a game. But here's the thing, man. That schedule is tough. And they could go 9-3, which I think they will, and it'd be a very good first year for DeBoer.
Yeah. And for our listeners, Chris, real quick, Alabama opens the season, Western Kentucky, South Florida. You got Wisconsin out of conference, Georgia, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Tennessee at Tennessee, Missouri at home, at LSU, Mercer, Oklahoma, and, of course, Auburn last there. So you're thinking that's pretty tough, right?
Still snuck in Mercer, baby. Love it. Love to see it. Yeah, I don't know why that's the token, like default joke.
It is.
Like, we always play some team like Mercer. And I'm like, no, they don't. And they're like, they do.
But you do, right.
Okay, so just going through the schedule, dude, like Dude, Western Kentucky's a team that had a quarterback that threw almost 60, like Bailey Zappi or whatever his name was, threw like 60 touchdowns like not that long ago. You've had guys like that's an air raid offense that's going to test a very young secondary early. They won't lose, but it'll be interesting to see. The road game against Wisconsin with Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback in year 2 under Fickle with Phil Longo, like who's done well all over the SEC, like from an offensive standpoint, that's very tough. I'm glad you get an off week before you get beat by double digits against Georgia because that's going to happen. They're going to lose, I think, at Tennessee. And then the whole thing is you just can't afford to lose anywhere else. So I think that they can beat LSU. I think they can beat Oklahoma. I think they can beat Auburn. I don't know if they can beat all 3 of those teams in 4 weeks. Ooh. And that's the thing that's so tough about it is like, dude, like, and before anyone starts talking shit about Bama's schedule, let's keep in mind, like, they've had a very highly ranked strength of schedule a lot of times. Like, they're playing 5 ranked teams in the top 16 this year, but it is the first time in a very long while that they don't have a G5 or FCS opponent the week before Auburn, and they got to go to Oklahoma for that. So it's just all over the schedule. There's landmines everywhere.
Chris, I want to read you a couple of quotes from our friends Heather Dinich and Paul Feinbaum at ESPN.
Your friends.
Heather said, every coach since Bear Bryant has lost 4 games in their first year at the helm of the Alabama Crimson Tide. They have a talented team, but this isn't a national title winner. Paul says, something is going to go wrong. I know Alabama fans don't think anything is ever going to go wrong. They were spoiled they were spoiled by Bear Bryant and later Saban. It's a brutal schedule. Let's talk. I use that to set the stage for this. Who wants this Iron Bowl more? You think, does Kalen DeBoer want this more, or does Hugh Freeze want it more?
I don't care. I think.
Come on, no.
I think it's probably Hugh Freeze because of what it would do for Hugh Freeze.
Sure.
Because here's the thing. I said this on your show 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like I said it the week before the Iron Bowl, and I still had people in your audience saying they would never listen to me again unless I was getting punched in the face. But like I said this on that episode, I was like, dude, whenever Saban does retire, and I didn't know when it was going to be, but I was like, man, if he retires, you have a very good opportunity in this day and age with the portal, and then bringing in a guy like Freeze, like and like all that kind of stuff, to turn the momentum in the state specifically into a 180 right off the bat.
Yeah,
because and listen, you saw it. Like I hate to throw something back to almost 45 years ago, but you saw it when Bear Bryant retired. Like Bo Jackson over the top, and then what took place the rest of the 80s, and then like. I grew up at a time this was a one-sided rivalry for a while in like the early 2000s, and like it was very back and forth in the 90s. Dude, like this, I'm 38, and Bama has won, what is it, like 6 national titles in the last like 15, 16 years, right? They won 6 in 9 years, I believe. I think it was.
Yeah.
That being said, this is the first time they've ever beat Auburn 4 years in a row in my life. Like that's a crazy stat. So. I think that it's going to mean a lot to DeBoer, especially if it means he's got to get to 10 wins so he can get into the playoff. But dude, Hugh's playing with house money against Bama right now. He's playing with house and I think Bama fans kind of know it, and they don't love it. And I don't know necessarily think that it's like Bama got themselves a really good coach, but yeah, I mean, like if you're Hugh, you saw it last year, like. Dude, you can get out there and let it fucking rip. Excuse my language. Let it rip, dude. Like,
sorry,
let it rip. Okay, so like, I mean, you got to have one of the coaches is going to probably be like this at the end of the season. The other one's going to be a lot more calm.
Yeah, I think that when it comes down to it, with Hugh Freeze making inroads in recruiting in the state of Alabama, winning this Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa might do a lot for your 2026 recruiting, showing that you can field a team there. But I to answer my own question, I think Hugh wants this one bad. I think he pulls out all the stops for his Iron Bowl, man. Saban retiring was a gift to college football, and no matter where you stand, you can admit he was the GOAT. Kirby won back-to-back national titles and somehow only owns 1 win over Saban in his whole time as a coach of Georgia. Come on, man. He is the Jordan standing in the way of the Charles Barkleys and the Patrick Ewans and all those guys winning championships. Yeah. That's what Saban was to college football. So
that means he's probably going to come back in 2 years after trying to do the whole thing on TV.
Well, they did move his office to the stadium, right? Like, so he's close when it's time to call on him.
What if he came back in the same way that Jordan came back wearing 45, Saban came came back without hair dye, and then came in and just gray-haired Saban for like a 3 months was just like on a tear.
Well, he's going to have to remodel his office because I heard DeBoer
got rid of
all the grown man stuff.
It's a sale at IKEA.
Let's do some quick hitters before we get out of here, Chris. Throughout the SEC, as I mentioned at the top of the show, a lot of great storylines in there. Auburn, Alabama, of course, always a big storyline in the SEC. But beyond that, and Hugh Freeze's recruiting, expectations are high in Oxford, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking you this simple question. Is this your failure for Lane Kiffin if Ole Miss doesn't make the playoff?
I don't know if it's a failure because I think people have a hard time. First off, and we don't need to get out of here on quick hitters. You texted me at dinner on Friday night, and you're telling me right now that I will not be rushed. Okay, I got 2 more episodes in a Wyatt Earp documentary I'm watching on Netflix before I go to bed, so I have plenty of time, brother. No, like the Lane Kiffin thing. I feel like it's very hard for me to look at something and say if you don't make the playoff at Ole Miss of all places, that's a failure. We haven't seen that. I mean, that's a program that like they went to their first Sugar Bowl since like the 60s in 2015. When they went to the Cotton Bowl, it was like the first time they had like a January 1st bowl in like 40 years or something crazy in 2002. Like Ole Miss is not a program that's had a ton of success in between like the time we landed on the moon and like the last 10 years, right? Like from JFK assassination to Hugh Freeze, not a ton to write home about. Okay.
Yeah,
like I don't love using that as the markers for the timeline, but still, I think that the thing that they have done, they're very similar to Miami, in my opinion, which is this. There's teams like Auburn, where you talk to people close to the NIL program there that are like, they've spent money, but they got money waiting. So if they want to make a push for somebody in the off season, they can do that. Ole Miss and Miami are not like that. Ole Miss and Miami are the Major League Baseball teams right before the trade deadline that they feel like they have a chance to make a run towards a series or a playoff run. So they have gone all in, traded away some prospects and getting like some people that can produce right now. That's what Ole Miss has done. Like they've gone out and spent money. They have gone out and done all those things so they can get in to a situation where like they can make this playoff run. And the schedule's favorable. Like Oklahoma, Georgia, both at home.
6 games are insanely easy.
Bro.
They should be 6-0 headed into LSU, right? Like
Ole Miss is gaslighting the entire country into thinking they're doing like a tough schedule. They're playing Wake Forest on the road. They played Georgia Tech on the road a couple of years. They played Tulane on the road in between then. But here's the thing, man. Here's why I don't trust Lane Kiffin, because not just because of his actual history and past that we've watched play out in real time on Twitter and on Tarmacs, but also because of the fact that like he hasn't stacked back-to-back seasons yet. We haven't seen him do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's the best play caller. Him and Sark are the best 2 offensive minds in football at any level, in my opinion. But we haven't seen him stack seasons back-to-back. And what worries me is, dude, you talk about Ole Miss, like they got some tough road games as well.
Yeah.
Where like they got to go to South Carolina, which may sound like it's not a tough game. Ole Miss has beaten one team with a winning record at the end of the season. They've beaten only one team in a true road game in the last 2 years, and that was Tulane. So like, it's great when everyone comes to the block anyway, but like if you got to go on the road, it's tough.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, their schedule sets up well for 6-0. After that 6-0, you're at LSU. You've got Oklahoma at home, Arkansas, Georgia. Obviously, will be the hardest game on that schedule, and then you close out with Florida and Mississippi State. In a 12-team playoff era, if there were ever a schedule that were going to provide a clear path to the playoff, I think this would be it. Maybe even easier than last year's schedule that they went 10-2 on. So we'll see where they land. After that, Missouri comes in. They finished as an AP top 10 team last year. Is this Eli Drinkwitz best team since 2013, or Missouri's best team since 2013? He wasn't there in 2013.
No, it's not. It's it was last year. And here's the thing, same thing with Drink. I love Mizzou. My best friend is a Mizzou fan. We've gone to games throughout like the last decade plus, and like I will always cheer for Mizzou. I think they get an unfair shake in this conference. And I tell you what, man, people forget when Mizzou came into the conference in 2012 with A&M. Going into fall camp, they lost all 5 starting offensive linemen due to season-ending injuries, and they went 4-8. And everyone's like, "Well, Mizzou sucks." Plus, I'm not great with maps because I'm an SEC fan, but they are way far away from everywhere else, brothers. They should not belong in this conference. And you're like, "Well, here's the thing, man. They won the division twice in a row. Tennessee hasn't done that once. Kentucky, South Carolina, all those teams. Like, so I think Mizzou, the thing that people aren't talking enough about, in my opinion, the schedule is crazy easy, Mike. They're playing at UMass, which even UMass doesn't want to play at UMass. So that's an unbelievable move to go play there. They should I think that Phil Steele had this metric that was like, in terms of rankings from opponents' winning percentage from a year ago, they're 127th in the country. There's not another team in the SEC that's ranked below 68. And so it's a crazy gap, right? But I look at what they have returning. They have a ton on offense. The offensive line should be good. You lose Schrader, that's fine. The receiver core is maybe the best in the SEC, but maybe. But you lost more defensive players to the draft than Georgia did. You just had another kid, Darius, I think it's Darius Smith. He's out for the year now at the defensive end position. You lost a really, really good cornerback. You returned a lot of starters and stuff, but you also lost a ton to the draft. All things considered. And here's the other thing too, man. How long has Eli Drinkwitz been at Mizzou?
I don't even know.
4 years.
4 years? Okay.
Do you know how many winning seasons he has?
I don't.
1.
Is that real? Year. Is that real?
Yeah, he had 3 straight losing seasons before. That was his first winning season. So it's I get it, and that's great that they won 11 games a year ago. But again, dude, you got to show me to do it back at it's literally the show me state. You have to stack seasons.
Yeah,
Chris, I know you're double checking.
Always good. Yeah, that's unbelievable. Actually.
But you know why? Because they won 11 games last year and they were great and they're an incredible underdog story. And the other thing too is, Mike, remember they played Georgia so close, and people love to hang their hats on shit like that. So it's they have played Georgia better than anyone else in the country for 2 years in a row. So whatever.
Yeah, I'm clipping that Missouri take because that's amazing. Moving on, Florida has the hardest schedule that I think we've ever seen in college football. 11 Power 5 opponents. I think Samford is their only non-P5 out of conference deal there. Is this it for Billy Napier, man? We talked before we got started, but please share with our listeners what you think about that situation there.
So here's the thing. And I got Auburn memes messaging me right now about doing a space, and he's mad that I'm not responding to him. So I'm trying to send him a message.
Calm down, Auburn memes.
Yeah. So here's the thing with Florida. You will not convince me, and it's not just because I'm a little bit in the bourbon on Friday night. You're not going to convince me until I get proof that Kirby Smart didn't make the schedule for Florida. That is a wild move. This is a team. Remember, that didn't leave the state of Florida in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season for 31 years until last year. They went to Syracuse in 91, and that was it. This schedule, you what was the team you brought up, Mike? Samford?
Yeah.
Do you remember the last time Samford and Florida played?
No.
It was 2021, and Samford went to the Swamp and put up 52 on them. So 52. I don't mean total combined points from both teams. I mean Samford lost 70 to 52. So I think they should beat Samford, of course. I think they have a chance. Right. But I think they have a chance to go ahead and beat Miami as well. I think the funniest thing that can happen out of this is that they go 5-7, but they go undefeated in the state of Florida, which is possible. They play UCF, Florida, and Miami. We'll see what happens. I just think that you have to give Napier one more year because everyone can see how bare the cupboard was when he got there. Dan Mullen, you guys are familiar with this at Auburn. Not trying to be rude or anything, but when head coaches do not prioritize or care about recruiting, it shows drastically, and it shows not just when they're there, but it shows in the year or two afterwards, and how difficult it is to replace that. So with Florida, and here's the thing with Florida. While this is all happening, their rivals are now ascending. You got Georgia winning natties. You got Tennessee in the NIL era, bringing in incredible recruiting classes and winning 11 games. It's really tough to do that. And I think that if they went to 6 wins, man, he should arguably win Coach of the Year, for real. But if he wins 5, I still think you have to give him another year. And there are people close to the program that you may not want to believe this, but that think he's closer to him. He's closer to getting a extension than he is to getting fired.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I think it's going to be tough recruiting. You talk about him, the cupboards being bare there. Recruiting is outside the top 25 this year. At some point, how do you stack the cupboard if you're Billy Napier?
Can I give you a take on that real quick?
Yeah.
Remember what Gus Malzahn did in 2019 with Bo Nix? he kind of hitched his wagon to him because it was like he was already on the hot seat going into the season, and it was like
cost him his job.
Yeah, but if you end up getting a true freshman quarterback to be like, hey, listen, you got to give me another year because like look at the potential.
Okay,
and that year Auburn beat Bama, and like so it was like they extended Gus another year. Or they let him have another year. I think that you could see Lagway, as good as Graham Mertz really is. I think that you would see Lagway have a big piece of this puzzle late in the season.
Chris, let's close talking about Texas. Did Steve Sarkisian sacrifice his firstborn to the college football gods for this schedule? This is a crazy. And I'm again, if you're listening on pod, I just want to read it out loud for you. They open with Colorado State. They're at the defending national champs, Michigan, although it'll be a different Michigan, right?
Yeah.
UTSA, UL Monroe, Mississippi State, Oklahoma and Georgia back-to-back, both at home, on the road at Vanderbilt, Florida at home, on the road at Arkansas, Kentucky at home, and then, of course, renewing that rivalry down there with Texas A&M at College Station, but still in the state of Texas. How did this happen? How did we let what happened to Florida happen, but then let this happen to Texas?
So the truthful answer is that when Sankey and them were making the schedule for like the different teams coming in the SEC and what they were going to do with this new format, it was they took a winning percentage of all the teams and they put them into tiers, and it was like that's why Oklahoma's getting murdered right now at their schedule. Bama's got a tough schedule. Georgia has a tougher schedule than they've had in a while. Same with Florida. It's like these teams that were really good for a while. And then you look at Texas, who was, let's not forget, like as good as Texas is very much the same thing in my mind as Mizzou a little bit, because it's like they talk all the time about how great they are. Dude, this is a program that won 2 Big 12 titles between 97 and 2022. Just 2, right? Like, and they want to talk about how they are blue blood and all that kind of stuff and whatever. They've had more 5-win seasons and losing seasons since 2010. They've had double the amount than they had 10-win seasons. And that's including last year. So they got the breaks of having an easy schedule because of how bad they have been, truly how bad they have been over a large sample size. Like this is what happens when you lose to Kansas. Yeah. And then still try to pretend like you're a blue blood. Like this is what happens. So yeah, he got a break, man. It's got to be frustrating, especially if you're Oklahoma, because it's like, dude, like what the like they have 2 tough games back to back. They get that game at Michigan is like such a facade of a tough game. That's the lock of the year, man. They're like I think they're like a 6.5 point favorite. That might be the lock of the year to take Texas. And then I think they lose to A&M at the end of the year because that's gonna be a crazy environment. But like again, if you get to 10 wins, you're in.
It's going to be interesting to see how this new 16-team SEC plays out. Chris, before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you, hear you, listen to your stuff.
No, I don't think they want to do that.
They do. Absolutely. Everybody does it.
Yeah. Social media. I work and run social media as content social media director for ESPN 104.5. So I tell you what, selling point if you're an Auburn fan. All those videos you see of Matt Moscona of him doing the Bama's burning thing. That's my boss. Yeah. I'm the one editing those videos each and every week. So it's a lot of fun. All Bama fans have to do is just not fall for it. And they can't help themselves.
Yeah, I love it.
It's unbelievable. So I've been doing that. We launched LouisianaSports.net. So I've been doing some writing over there. Also host Locked On Gamecocks for the Locked On Podcast Network. And then also me and Clint Lamb are hosting a show called All Tied Up with the Next Run Live and Cover Crimson for them as well. So really all over the place. And I would say, man, if you love college football and you hate the bleep button, you will most likely like most of my content.
Well, we don't like the bleep button here at the War Report. We're rated E for everyone. Guys, that's it for another great edition of Building Rapport. My guy, Chris Marler. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. Signing off, and as always, War.